Hi everybody, today's special guest is Izzy Hearnshaw. Izzy, I know from our time back at Durham. Izzy, how are you doing these days?
Yeah, good, thank you. Back in Yorkshire at the moment. Enjoying lockdown life. It's not too bad actually right now. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. And you're right, it's not too bad. It gives you an opportunity to do all the things that you've always wanted to do, but you don't have time because you're working and playing and doing all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, very, very true. And I think being back with family actually is really, really nice. I probably haven't lived at home for this long in quite a few years, but all is well at the moment.
Yeah, don't be too hesitant about that at the moment. Yeah. Yeah, I do love my parents a bit, but I'm not sure I could live with them ever again.
Yeah, well, we got a new puppy at the start of the lockdown,
Uh-huh.
so that helps things.
Yeah, cool. All right, so let's go back to Durham.
Mhm.
And you took over the tennis advisor's role. Was that the job?
Yeah, so UTC, so University Tennis Coordinator. So kind of oversee the program completely. In most universities, it's to do with participation, so kind of increasing the amount of people who are playing tennis at university. Mine was a little bit different because I also took on the performance side of the Durham program. So yeah, oversaw all of tennis at Durham really for 2 years, and also did some anti-doping education, as you know.
As I do know. Yeah, we might get into that later on as well. Let's go from a performance point of view because within those 2 years, you started playing really well, and you certainly increased your level. If not, your ranking and your ratings as well. So, how did that come about?
So I think in my first, second, and third year at Durham as an undergrad, I very much just balanced tennis and academics as any kind of student athlete tries to do. And I think in my master's year, my master's was part time, so that helped.
Mm.
And I think, I mean, I started doing some work with you, Graham, in my third year, I think. And in my third year, we kind of worked a lot on goal setting and kind of getting my mindset in the right place so that when I went on a tennis court, I just performed the best I could. But that actually took quite a lot of work, I think. So I think that only really came good probably in my fourth year was when I could just go on a tennis court and play. Yeah, I think fitness was a huge part of it as well. But I almost needed the mindset and to sit down with someone like you to work out how I was going to do that and how I was going to achieve those goals. I think I was always, even in my undergrad in Durham, I always had tennis goals, but my actual process of getting to those goals, sometimes I didn't really look at that and I just wanted to get to the goal and I didn't really think about how I was going to get there. So I think a lot of our work in the early days was a lot about kind of process goals and how I was going to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And I think we hit a lot of targets and probably even more than we were expecting.
I'm so pleased that you used the we there. But as I've always said, psychology for me is it's a doing thing, it's an action, and you had to do it, you had to action it, you had to go to the gym, you had to work on some of the things that physically and technically that weren't as good as they could have been. So you did all the work. I just hopefully prodded a little bit.
Yeah, well, you also came on the tennis court with me a few times.
Yeah, should we talk about the little games and matches that we played? Is
Yeah, okay. So apart from raising my confidence a lot of the time, we did do some technical stuff on court, but Graham also did beat me a few times on court.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how that happened, by the way, at my age. But you know what it is? I'm probably going to take the win.
Yeah, fair enough.
We should move on pretty quickly
Yeah.
because I do remember there's a time where you were thinking, well, actually, you were done with tennis and you're also done with studying as well. And so, after graduating from Durham, you headed off to Repton
hmm
for
Yeah.
a year.
So yeah, it was almost like, well, I guess in my third year of Durham, I thought I would be done with tennis and that I would move straight on. Then we kind of started to get a bit more involved in tennis, and I could kind of see that actually tennis wasn't something I was ready to say goodbye to. So then I had the trade off between going to America for my master's or staying in the UK and doing my job at Durham. So did that, and then got to the end of my master's, so the end of my 5th year, which actually was kind of tricky because I'd taken a job in the December of my last year, and actually I probably played my best tennis from April to August of that year. So I went into full-time employment probably on the back of probably some of my best results, which was kind of tricky transition-wise, but knew I wanted to teach, and really enjoyed being at a school like Repton, which has such a kind of a big emphasis on sport, but also academic, which was kind of reflected a lot of how I had gone through life. So yeah, I really enjoyed being at Repton, managed to do a bit more coaching, still managed to hit, but then made the decision that I was going to go back to being a student.
We'll get to that bit in a minute, but I'm keen to find out what lessons you learned from Durham as a player, but also in terms of managing the program, that you passed on to some of the kids in Repton, because obviously they're all high performance athletes who are coming up in the pathway, not just tennis, but all sports as well. Is there anything that specifically that you took that you thought, yeah, that's the message I'm going to give to them to help and support them?
So I guess the messages I would hope to get across were more sport-wide and participation in sport than just performance sport, because I think that's quite niche. It was nice that I could join in some of like the first team tennis squads, and I hope at that point I was a role model of things like work ethic and resilience and things like that. But I think in general, I think a lot of the pupils would be aware that I was very involved in sport, and I think it was more the lessons I'd learned from sport and the skills I'd learned, which I would say were really important to them. So again, the things like work ethic and resilience, but also communication, I think was a huge one. I think as an athlete, or I would say as a tennis player in an individual sport, sometimes communication is maybe not the best skill because you're so used to just being on your own in the court. But I think working at Durham and having to manage people and with other colleagues, my communication probably really improved. And I think just that kind of coachability and teachability is a really big thing in sport and in education when I'm teaching. So just kind of almost teaching people how to be teachable, I think is really big in both things.
Yeah, I love that. And I think you did a fab job at Durham, and you certainly set the standard for everybody else who's come through and taken that job since, because it is a difficult job, especially in the world of tennis, because you do deal with a few big egos from time to time, don't you?
Yeah, you do. And I think you have to become very empathetic and completely understand where each individual is coming from. And tennis has such a massive mix of different individuals that I think you become so much better at understanding different people and what makes different people tick. You know, at Durham, you kind of had to get all these different individuals, put them in teams, not really based on how they'd work together as a team, but you just rank them. So based on how good they are at tennis, and then they have to work together towards a goal. So I think it taught me a massive lesson in leadership, really.
And also how to come and knock on my door and just scream.
Yeah, that was a big thing. The weekly, well, it was meant to be a weekly hourly slot, but I think it became a lot more frequent than that because I needed to talk to someone about how to manage it all. But yeah.
Yeah, but no, you did a fab job, and any university or any organization would be lucky to have you in terms of your work ethic and your role model kind of mentality. But just generally, the fact is that you care, and you care for the individuals that you're working with as well, which is why you never kind of shouted at them. You'd always come and shout at me.
Sorry, but thank you.
That's fine. But we've kept in touch, and obviously you went to Repton, and we talked about going to Repton and some of the hurdles that you had then, and then you kind of made a decision to go back, didn't you? So out of 2 years of maybe, right, I'm going to be done with tennis and I'm going to be done with academics, to what was the next step, Izzy? I'll let you tell everybody.
So going into full-time teaching is quite tough. Everyone knows that being a young teacher is quite tough. So I kind of wanted to work on my professional development as a teacher a bit more, almost as an investment for the future. So I spoke to some people, got some advice, and the advice was that I'd apply to do my PGCE, so my teacher training, at Cambridge, and if that door opened, it opened, and if it didn't open, it didn't open. But I got accepted probably in January. So yeah, I've been at Cambridge now, well, still there technically, for this year, and that's been amazing. And I think it's another example, really. Sometimes I look back on life, very reflective, and I see all the doors actually tennis open for me. And I think I'm now a massive believer in sport as this huge facilitator in life. I think everyone thinks about education being the massive facilitator, which it is, and as a teacher I would very much say it is, but sport also massively as well. And I think each path's kind of led me there. So in the back of my mind, as well as professional development, I think I also thought, oh, I could also play some more tennis at Cambridge. And so I went into this next year at Cambridge, and always one of my goals throughout the year has been to get my Cambridge blue, as well as obviously to succeed as well as I could academically. And yes, so far so good.
Yeah, and if I think about it, obviously graduating from Durham, playing for Durham, I was lucky enough to come with you and Jess to Wimbledon when you played with Wimbledon there. But also, I guess the new opportunity arose, which meant playing for Cambridge in the States. So do you want to tell everybody about that tournament and what is actually happening with that?
So there's a quite famous and historical tour that takes place for a Cambridge and Oxford team. It's called the Seabright Cup, and the men play one called the Prentice Cup. It's actually fairly recent for a girls team to go. So throughout the year, we've kind of known that there was a selection going on. So they take a team of 4 girls from Cambridge and Oxford. So kind of worked hard all year, and it became my new goal. I wasn't aware of this trip in the lead up to going to Cambridge, but became aware, which was really great for motivation. But yeah, also a little bit nerve-wracking at times.
Also, we had this little thing, by the way, at Durham, where that was just a little bit of an Izzyism there. I just wasn't aware of the fact that this trip was available to me.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But yeah, I went with a positive mentality. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to get myself in the best position possible whilst I'm here at Cambridge to put myself kind of in the mix of players who could go on the trip. So the final selection match was at Wimbledon, which was a great experience in itself, playing for Cambridge and Oxford against Wimbledon. And I found out the next week that I'd been selected, which was amazing. And I was really excited. It was kind of a month in the States, loads of experiences, playing in loads of nice clubs, staying with alumni. And then it culminates in this match called the Seabright Cup, which is Oxford and Cambridge against Harvard and Yale. So I was really looking forward to that. But unfortunately, coronavirus has put the brakes on that. We're not sure about selection for next year yet, which is when it will take place. So the trip's been postponed. I'm not a student, unfortunately, next year. Although maybe I should make that happen now. I'm not a student next year. So we'll see. I'm not sure whether I'll be in the team, which is quite tough. But I think as someone who's grown up always playing sport, I'm quite aware almost of the quite brutal nature of sport. And but I think that's what makes us athletes almost love sport more, because, it's very you win, you lose, you pull yourself back up again and you go again, which is, a philosophy which helps you in the workplace as it helps you in sport. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned that, because my business for the last 11 years has literally gone across business, education and sport, and the links are so big. And our coaching boardroom program literally takes all of the learning, all of the messages, the leadership, the teamwork stuff from sports, and tries to apply it into a business concept, because actually the similarities are huge.
Yeah, it's absolutely huge. And actually I didn't realize that at all till I get into positions at work and in general life where I think, and I think one of the comments I got last year as a teacher going straight in on a full timetable and kind of dealing with being a young teacher was how resilient I was. And, you know, if I had a bad day, I would just get back up again. You'd almost know it hadn't happened. And I think we don't even realize we're doing that. And someone asked me, the same member of staff asked me, where do you think that resiliency comes from? And straight away I said tennis. You know, like even when I was 10 years old and, you know, tennis was the be all and end all, I would lose a match and I'd cry all the way home. But then my parents, you know, were very supportive, but they'd ask me, well, do you want to go to tennis today then? And I'd look at them like, you know, my bag was already packed. Of course I was going to tennis. Yeah, so it's definitely a great skill.
I actually remember that WhatsApp message you sent me about the teacher saying that to you. I can't believe how resilient you are. And I was like, yeah, we knew that. We knew that was going to happen.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I was like, wow, like no one's actually told me I'm really resilient. But actually, when I look back, I guess, yeah, I am. And it's definitely because of tennis.
Good. And also the lead role that you put yourself in the opportunities to take, because it's all about taking those opportunities. And you were talking about doors opening before, and the doors only open if you're there. And if you're not there, and if you think about the fact that that conversation we had about, yeah, I think I'm done with tennis, I think I'm done with academics. Well, hold on a second. 3 or 4 years now down the line, and, you know, Cambridge Blue, back at Wimbledon playing again, and then this opportunity to go to the States and represent Cambridge and Oxford.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess when I look back, the doors that opened for me as a junior, you almost just walk into them, you know, like trips abroad or meeting people, and you don't really think about it. But then as it got me, you know, scholarship to sixth form, to university, meet people, it got me my first job, and then arguably got me my second job because I'd been there through tennis. Yeah, it's quite amazing, really. Sometimes I do think, where would I be if I hadn't started playing tennis? And I have no idea, because I don't think there's any section of my life that would be the same as it would have been if I hadn't played tennis.
Yeah, I still think knowing you is you'd have been relatively successful, and you'd still be at the level that you are now, because you do have that resilience, but you have that passion, you have that ambition, you're prepared to go and knock on a door and allow the door to be open, where some people are more likely to walk away from the door or maybe hide in a different room. So some people wouldn't have even had the conversation about, Graham, listen, I'm thinking of packing tennis, I'm thinking about leaving education. They would have just done it. And I think resilience comes sometimes from the confidence to ask those questions, which are maybe a little bit difficult to ask, but to do it openly, because then when it's openly out, you know, for everybody to kind of have a conversation about, then you put yourself out there, and you've done that, and you've done a great job with that so far.
Thank you.
So well done.
Yeah, I guess so.
Look at that. How confident does that make you feel? And we'll not mention your birthday yesterday, and hopefully you had a good time as well, even though it's a different type of birthday, isn't it?
Yeah, it was really lovely. I mean, I think now is this is really soppy, but I think now is one of those times, especially where you kind of have to be thankful for the things that are good. So yeah, I actually had a really nice birthday. Me, mum, dad, the puppy. It was nice.
Very nice, very nice. So what are future plans then? We're gonna graduate from Cambridge, hopefully, if we ever get back. Or are you guys doing things online now, or what are Cambridge doing at this moment in time academically?
Yeah, so all Cambridge academics are online at the moment. Our course is, I guess, a little bit more weird in these times because I'd currently be on placement in school. So I'm teaching remotely at the moment with my placement, so much like many other teachers, which is also a bizarre experience, but just trying to do the best I can really for the pupils at the moment. So after that, I should finish kind of mid-June. Had probably my last summer of tennis lined up. So I have said that a few times though, so that's not really going to happen. But we'll see. I'm not sure what the summer will hold. But then I start work as an NQT, so a newly qualified teacher, hopefully in September, back down in Cambridge. And then we'll see where life takes me. I don't know if I will teach forever, because there's something that still draws me back to working in tennis or in sport, to be honest. if I could do something that was kind of education and sport at the same time, that would be good. I mean, I'm sure whatever school I'm in, I'll try and be as involved in sport as possible. Just, I think it's really important for people to know sport, not only for mental health benefits and all the benefits that comes with it, healthy living, but because tennis has just done so much in my life, I'm quite passionate kind of about showing what sport can do in every kid's life.
No, you are passionate, but what other core values do you think you've clung on to, and where do you think they came from?
Big questions, Graham.
Thanks. Do you know how many people have asked me that over these 30 days? Like, Graham, I wasn't expecting you to ask a question that I had to think of. Well, I always do, don't I?
Core values. So I don't know if you'd class this as a core value, but one thing I got told at school, and maybe this is why I'm interested in being a teacher now, because I think a lot of my kind of core values or core beliefs came from school, was the phrase aspire to inspire. So I think that's something that is in the back of my mind, maybe subconsciously now. So I think whatever I do, I try and put my full self into it, and just try and do the best I can in whatever I do. But that's actually quite difficult when you're kind of transitioning out of sport, because you're kind of leaving one thing out, so like tennis. So then I find it quite hard to play tennis just casually, which is no good for club tennis. But yeah, in work now, I kind of try and channel that intensity almost that I'd approach tennis with in that other part of my life. So yeah, I guess just trying to do the best I can with what I have and what I'm doing.
I think that's almost all of us can ever do, no matter how old you are, no matter what you do. You have to try to be better tomorrow than you were today. And for me, it's almost that simple. What have I done today that is going to make me better tomorrow? And whether that's a technical or a tactical thing in the world of sport, whether it's a physical thing in terms of running in your garden or doing Joe Wicks on the TV, or whether it's a new mental thing. And you'd be quite proud of the fact that I signed up to do a Yale course while I'm in my house as well. So only because, I like badge collecting and I wanted to get the hoodie to play.
Yeah, I was looking forward to that this summer.
Yeah.
I was thinking, whoa, I could get a Yale jumper, a Harvard jumper. Yeah, I mean, I've started training for a marathon, so I mean, I don't know who's gone more crazy here, but.
Yeah, I've run 45 miles. I was telling you, I've run 45 miles in my garden.
I don't know how. I have to put a podcast in when I'm running outside.
I literally have to go up the garden, down the garden, and then I go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and then all the way back. So I'm literally running shuttles, and then I have to do that 8 times for 1 mile. The most I've managed is 5 miles. 5 miles, and that's it. But
that's impressive.
Well, it is. 1, it is at my age. 2, it is because I hate running, and it's 3. According to the S&C guys, it's 4 times the amount of effort and energy by running shuttles like that than just running straight.
It's like the bleep test when they said never quit on the turnaround.
Yeah, beep. I keep hearing that.
Had a lot of those.
It's like, don't want to do that, but never mind. Right, Izzy, thank you very much for your time. I'm going to finish off with one question. Actually, 2 questions, if that's all right. One is, what would be your top tips for anybody who's going to go to university next year, in their very first year, that will almost accelerate their learning? So we don't want people to catch up, especially in the world of sport, in year 2 or year 3. If they can hit the ground running and take that learning on board quickly, then we get 3 more successful and more advanced years from them. What would be your top 3 tips for somebody going to university to play sport and actually study academically?
I think the first thing would be that you've got to really utilize everything university sport is giving you. I'm not sure about other sports, but I think it's similar from talking to other coaches, and definitely in tennis, the package you kind of receive university tennis, especially those who are supported by the Tennis Foundation, is so huge in terms of value for money compared to any other stage in your tennis development. So as a junior, your parents, they sacrifice and for money, time, everything. And then suddenly you get to university. I mean, what did I pay at Durham? £270 a year. And I could be on court every day. I could be having S&C sessions with a coach. I could be seeing you as a sports psychologist. I could be getting nutrition advice. So I think as soon as you get there, someone will tell you about all the opportunities, but you need to not just sit back and think, oh, this is lovely, like all these opportunities, but I'm also like meeting loads of friends and I'm doing my course. I think meeting people socially will always happen at university and your course will always happen, but there's not many times in your life as an athlete who wants to get better, you'll be in that kind of environment. So I
we
think
both know Johnny Binding quite well, don't we? And Johnny was certainly the player who, as a Durham and Cleveland captain, when he came through as a junior, he was okay. But when he went to Durham, I think it was maybe his second year, and he realised the fact that actually, I can be a professional athlete here if I want to. And Johnny's obviously gone full time, and I think he's still in Soto at the moment. Well, I think he's home, but I think he has been training and playing out of Soto.
Yeah.
And he's certainly with you, or one of those people that just embraced everything and said, right, what can I do to be better in all of these areas? And then again, that psychology thing about action, you've got to go and do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think completely. I think Johnny was a massive example of someone who just took everything that Durham could give him and wanted to give him. I mean, he worked hard. He still had to put the work in. But yeah, so you definitely need to take advantage of all that's with you. And I mean, for Durham athletes, having someone like yourself who almost has that overview, I think is really priceless, because just someone to sit down and figure out what's important in your academics, what's important in your social life, what's important in your sport life. Because I think that's something I didn't really have till I sat down with you, someone who could oversee the whole picture. Because I had my lecturers who are saying, you need to do this is your priority. My friends who are saying, this is your priority. Yeah. And someone in the gym saying, this is your priority. So just getting that full picture of what Durham can give you, really, and making sure you've kind of set yourself on the track to make the most of it. Because it's a real shame if you go somewhere like Durham and you don't experience everything it has to offer you.
Agree. And one more? What more is, you've got one more left in you. What are the top tips?
Someone who's going to university. For me, I think one of the defining things in terms of my experience was putting myself in a position of leadership. So when people came to me when I was president in my third year as an undergrad, and they wouldn't know whether they should put themselves up in hustings, because actually it's quite a scary environment. You stand up in front of the whole club, say why you should be the next leader of the club in some regard. And you take a vote, so it can seem a little bit like a popularity contest, which is quite scary. But I went for women's captain in the end of my first year, and I didn't get it. And actually, that was a bit of a blow, because people will tell you DULTC was my life at uni. But yeah, I then went to be president, and then obviously ran the program in my last 2 years. And I mean, it gave me a job, it gave me so many skills, it gave me things for my CV, it gave me so many friends, it just gave me so much. So I think, yeah, just launch yourself into any position of leadership you can, because I think that teaches you a lot of things that nothing else really can at that stage in your life.
Yeah, and I can't argue with that. It is about giving, it's about giving back. And sometimes you get some people who just take, but the more you give, actually, the more you do receive. And that certainly is for you in terms of the effort. I remember the number of conversations I've turned around to you and said, Izzy, you're doing far too much. Let's just get one job done first, and then we can move on. You took it on stride. Yeah, you had your moments, but you certainly got through it, which is where your resilience comes from. And that's where resilience in tennis, but resilience in life, they're all you. That both arrows point at you. You can't separate the two. So my last question is, and I've always thought when people are in the situation where they've got two different pathways in life, I've always thought of three things. One, never give up. Two, never ever give up. Three, never ever ever give up. Why did you not give up?
That's actually really interesting, because I actually spoke to someone the other day about like stepping away from tennis. And someone said, I hate it when people talk about moving away from a sport as giving up on the sport. And I think that's so true. I would never say I gave up tennis. I mean, I still play, but even if I wasn't playing now, I'd never say I gave up on tennis, because I think you still just use those things tennis has taught you in whatever part of life you're in next, and in whatever you're doing. And for me, in terms of tennis, I always thought just about why I started playing tennis, all the things that had given me, and all the goals I still have. I think you always, in whatever you're doing, you're still going to have goals to be better. So I guess that drive just to keep on getting better was the biggest reason why I never gave up.
Cool. Thank you very much for your time, Izzy. Always nice to speak to you.
You're welcome.
I will let you go. Before I go, I will let everybody just make sure you subscribe. Please come and watch Izzy on the channel. Subscribe, and what we'll do is we'll do a little Izzy's Top Tips as a PDF you guys can download. We'll put some activities in there as well for anybody going to university who wants to maybe start to define that why. Have a look at what it is and what goals that they can set while they're at university as well. So do that. Enjoy the rest of the videos. Izzy, I'm sure you will be watching. There is a couple of tennis ones coming up.
Nice.
So that'll be quite fun, as well as a couple of Olympians and also a couple of professional football players as well. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have a safe summer. If you do get back to Cambridge, good luck with your qualifications, and good luck if you do get to go to the States.
Thank you, Graham. See you soon.
Bye.